You people need to know your place." Victoria's words cut like glass as she ground her Louis Vuitton heel into the floor. Immani had just finished mopping, leaving a deliberate black smear. Cream-colored invitation slapped against the side of Immani's cleaning cart. "You should come to our charity gala," Victoria Montgomery Prescott sneered, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "The help is always welcome." Her laugh ricocheted down the marble corridor, sharp, cruel, unforgettable. The sharp tang of lemon cleaner mingled with the heavy sweetness of Victoria's $800 Clive Christian perfume, toxic, just like her smile. The sharp crack of Victoria's heel striking Immani's bucket broke the moment. Water splashed violently across the floor, soaking through Immani's worn shoes. "Clean that up before you leave." "Board meeting at 7 a.m. Victoria tossed the words over her shoulder, as though they were scraps for a stray dog. She was already gone, heels clicking like a gavel of judgment. Immani stood still, watching the water creep outward across the floor. 42 years old, Howard University MBA. The so-called executive housekeeping manager. She should have been leading strategy in a Fortune 500 boardroom. The woman with 3 patent-pending systems that could revolutionize commercial maintenance, yet invisible to someone like Victoria Montgomery Prescott, reduced to silence. Reduced to a mop. Her phone buzzed. A message from her daughter lit the screen. "Mom, remember what you always tell me, walk into every room like you own it. When will you start doing the same?" Immani's grip tightened on the mop handle until her knuckles blanched. A faint smile tugged at her lips, though her throat tightened with a knot of unshed words. "Perhaps sooner than anyone expects," she whispered. Victoria froze mid-step, heels pausing against the marble. She turned back, eyebrows arched. "Honey," she purred, "it's $5,000 a plate." Her smile sharpened, cutting and cold. "I was just being, what's the word? Inclusive? Board diversity initiative and all that?" Immani stayed silent. No rebuttal, no visible reaction. Only her mind working swiftly, already calculating how to erase the black heel mark without damaging the marble beneath. Some stains could be polished away. Others ran deeper, etched into history. Pinnacle Tower rose around her, glass and steel, concealing the rot inside. Headquarters of Montgomery Industries, $8 billion commercial real estate empire, built on hostile takeovers wrapped in the language of urban renewal, smiling faces that displaced entire communities. She knew it intimately. Before wearing the Navy uniform embroidered with prestige cleaning services, she had applied here as herself, a Howard-educated black woman with patents pending and a vision for the future. James Montgomery had scanned her resume for barely a second before dismissing her. Not the right fit, he had said. Now he walked these halls unaware of her. The uniform made her invisible. And yet tonight the boardroom demanded her attention in ways no one expected. Pushing her cart through the service entrance, Immani paused at the sight of scattered papers on the polished conference table. Confidential acquisition targets. Her eyes scanned the list. 3 black-owned businesses, each struggling after pandemic losses. The notes were mercilessly clear. Leverage financial distress. Offer 30% below market. Emphasize their limited options. Predators circling the wounded. Something else caught her attention. Financial statements stamped with the glossy logo of the Montgomery Future Leaders Fund, Victoria's so-called charity. Immani's brow furrowed. The numbers didn't match. Large donations entered. Almost nothing left the account. Instead, funds funneled offshore under the label of administrative expenses. A polished scam dressed in philanthropy. Immani slipped her phone from her pocket and snapped photos, silent, deliberate. Voices echoed in the corridor. She moved fast, sliding papers back into neat folders and shifting her posture into the submissive stance expected of cleaning staff. Head lowered. Eyes averted. Invisible. The door swung open. James Montgomery entered, first silver-haired, cased in a Brooks Brothers suit, Harvard Business School confidence radiating off him like cologne. At 58, he deturned his father's modest company into an $8 billion empire built on polished lies. Victoria clung to his arm like jewelry. 19 years younger, second marriage for her, third for him. "The cleaning lady is still here," Victoria muttered with a frown. James didn't bother looking at her. "Just work around us. It won't be long." So she remained present yet unseen, watching the predators discuss their next feast. The question burned inside her. Would she always remain invisible to people who profited from stepping on others? Or had Victoria Montgomery Prescott finally chosen the wrong woman to humiliate? Monday morning, Immani arrived early. In the service area, Gerald Porter, owner of Prestige Cleaning Services, waited for her. His usual grin was gone, his forehead creased with worry. Montgomery Industries is reviewing all vendor relationships, he muttered, rubbing his temples. 40% of our business, Immani. I can't lose this contract. Her stomach dropped. Did they say why? The silence told her everything she needed to know. Apparently, someone complained about staff conduct. Gerald's voice was low, his eyes fixed anywhere but on her, a board member's wife. The knot in Immani's chest pulled tighter. Victoria, petty revenge for the gala exchange. I'll speak with her. No, Gerald cut her off, sharper than she'd ever heard him. That's exactly what you can't do. Promise me you'll keep your head down. 16 families depend on this contract. Immani thought of her team. Maria saving every dollar for her son's college tuition. Abdul, sending money back home to relatives who relied on him. Luis, drowning under his wife's medical bills. Mothers, fathers, immigrants, single parents, of them balancing survival on a paycheck tied to this building. I promise, she said quietly, swallowing the weight of their hopes. The elevator chimed open. Diane Foster, Montgomery Industries CFO, stepped out in a charcoal gray suit, her phone pressed to her ear. At 47, she was the company's highest-ranking woman and the only executive who ever acknowledged Immani with the smallest nod, a quiet respect that made Diane different. I understand the contract review, James, Diane's voice carried as she spoke into her phone. But slashing costs by hiring undocumented workers creates liability. She ended the call when she noticed Gerald, Diane Foster. Gerald extended a hand. Her handshake was firm, her eyes sharp. Your team does exceptional work, especially Ms. Taylor's attention to detail. Gerald beamed. Immani's our best. And be educated if you can believe it. Something flickered across Diane's face. Interest, curiosity, a calculation forming. That afternoon, Immani's heart pounded as she passed James Montgomery's office. The door was cracked, voices drifting through. I don't care about the liability, Victoria snapped. That cleaning woman looked at me disrespectfully. Find another service, Diane recommends against it, James replied. Since when do you care what Diane thinks? Victoria's voice dripped venom. I want them gone. Immani slipped away before the rest could sear into her memory. 16 families' mortgages, bills, futures hanging by the thread of Victoria Montgomery Prescott's bruised ego. Later in the executive kitchen, Victoria's voice rang bright with false warmth as she entertained her charity board. When her gaze landed on Immani, her lips curved into a cruel smile. Perfect timing, she announced to her guests. Fresh coffee, please. Immani brewed the expensive single erosion beans, setting the cup gently before her. Victoria didn't take a sip. Instead, she tipped the coffee onto the freshly mopped floor, eyes locked on Immani's. Oops, she said, her smile widening. Accidents happen. Immani's jaw tightened, but her movements stayed steady as she lifted her mop. From the doorway, Diane Foster observed silently, her expression unreadable. When Victoria swept out with her entourage, Diane stepped closer. Some stains run deeper than others, Diane murmured. True, Immani replied softly, wringing the mop. But everything can be cleaned with the right solution. Diane's brow arched just slightly. Interesting perspective, Miss Taylor. After her shift ended, the building lay silent, emptied of its arrogance. Immani slipped into a forgotten maintenance closet, flipping on the single bulb. This was her sanctuary. Her secret. 3 years of stolen lunch breaks and unpaid overtime lived here, carefully labeled samples. Prototype applicators, binders stuffed with research. Her patented system, eco-friendly solutions with ultra-efficient methods. Lab results proved at 40% less water, 63% less chemical waste, 28% faster completion. Here, in this cramped closet, her dream breathed. Tomorrow, she had a meeting with Breakthrough Ventures. 5 rejections already, but this firm specialized in minority-owned businesses. Hope felt dangerous, but she let it flicker anyway. The door swung open suddenly. Victoria stood in the doorway, surprise flickering across her face before curdling into amusement. Working late? Her gaze swept over Immani's carefully arranged research binders, labeled samples, prototype applicators. What's all this? Immani straightened. Research project. Victoria plucked up one of the applicators, turning it between manicured fingers. Playing inventor on company time? Her phone appeared in her hand. James will find this. It's interesting. It's my lunch break, Immani said evenly. And that's proprietary technology. Victoria's laugh sliced the air. Proprietary? Cleaning lady with patents? How adorable. She flipped through diagrams and chemical formulas, ignoring Immani's quiet protest. Please don't touch those, Immani said, reaching for her binder. Victoria's eyes hardened. Or what? You'll complain to HR about the CEO's wife? She snapped more photos. Know your place. The next morning, Immani's stomach dropped at the email. Investor meeting canceled. No explanation. By afternoon, the company's announcement hit every major outlet. Montgomery Industries launches new sustainability initiative. The details were unmistakable. Her system, every calculation, every improvements, stolen, polished, and repackaged. The press release gushed. Mrs. Victoria Montgomery Prescott has developed an innovative approach to environmentally responsible cleaning methods that will revolutionize the industry while supporting disadvantaged communities. Her name, her work, her years of sacrifice, gone. She found Victoria later in the executive restroom, reapplying lipstick with calm precision. Stole my work, Immani said, blocking the door. Victoria barely glanced at her reflection. I improved upon basic concepts anyone could have developed. I have documented proof, patent applications, timestamps. Finally, Victoria turned. Her eyes were shards of ice. Who would believe a cleaning lady invented this? Over meet the CEO's wife? Immani's phone, hidden in her pocket, recorded every word. You've made a mistake, Immani said quietly. Victoria stepped closer, her perfume heavy, suffocating. No, sweetheart, you have. Cross me again, and Prestige Cleaning won't just lose this contract, they'll lose everything. 2 weeks later, the Watergate Hotel ballroom glittered with chandeliers, champagne flutes, and the hum of power. Victoria's pre-gala luncheon overflowed with donors and reporters. Gerald had begged Immani to staff it. We can't afford to upset her more, he'd pleaded. Just keep your head down. So here she was, invisible in plain sight, serving champagne while Victoria basked in admiration. Montgomery Prescott, a reporter, said, Your foundation's work is inspiring. These cleaning methods, brilliant. Safer for workers, better for the environment. How did you create them? Victoria beamed. My foundation identifies solutions for underprivileged communities. These innovations will change lives. Her eyes caught Immani in the crowd. A cruel smile curved her lips. Everyone, meet my inspiration. She beckoned Immani forward, gripping her shoulder and pushing her slightly downward for the cameras. She's shown me how the underprivileged can contribute to my vision. Flashes burst. Applause rippled. Immani stayed still, her spine straight, though Victoria's hand pressed her into a posture of submission. Her face calm, her silence louder than any outburst. But inside her, something unbreakable had shifted. The ballroom erupted in applause for Victoria's supposed compassion. Perhaps Victoria said sweetly, her eyes glittering with malice, she could demonstrate the proper cleaning technique for everyone. A hush followed, cameras poised. Immani remained perfectly still, refusing the bait. Another time, Victoria said smoothly, lips curving. Laughter rippled, thin and uncomfortable. Later in the service corridor, Diane Foster's heels clicked softly on the concrete. She stopped beside Immani. Interesting presentation, Diane said casually. Those chemical formulations seemed quite technical. Immani said nothing, her silence a shield. I've seen similar concepts before, Diane continued, her voice lowering. KNEP applications. Immani's head snapped up. Diane slipped her a business card. My private number. Call me. That evening, Immani's phone buzzed. A message from Tasha lit the screen. Mom, I got it. Montgomery Industries Summer Associate Program. Pride surged, then curdled into dread. Tasha had fought for this moment. 4.0 GPA at Spelman. Finance major. the internship that launched careers. And yet the thought of her daughter stepping into Victoria's orbit made Immani's stomach twist. Before she could type, another message arrived. "Why aren't you excited? This is what we've been working toward." "I am excited," Immani replied quickly. Three nights later, the executive parking garage echoed with emptiness as Immani pushed her cart. Headlights flared suddenly. Mercedes' SUV screeched to a halt inches from her. Victoria stepped out, face twisted with fury. "Your daughter," she spat. "Tasha Taylor. The new summer associate." Immani froze. "What about her?" Victoria stalked closer, heels striking concrete like gunshots, cornering Immani against the wall. "Did you think I wouldn't find out? You could plant your daughter in my husband's company?" "She earned that position," Immani said firmly. "Top of her class. Spare me." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Here's what happens now. You behave. No accusations, no attitude. Or your ambitious little girl learns how the world really works for people like you." Immani's voice sharpened. "Are you threatening my child?" "I'm explaining consequences," Victoria said smoothly, her smile returning. "Summer associates are evaluated subjectively. Such a shame when promising careers end before they begin." The Mercedes roared away, exhaust fumes and menace hanging in the air. Immani's body shook, her breath ragged in the echoing garage. That night, her apartment walls seemed to close in. Her dining table was buried beneath business plans, patent applications, rejection letters, 3 years of labor and hope, too often ending in disappointment. Her navy cleaning uniform hung limply on the closet door, staring across at the framed MBA diploma from Howard University. Two worlds that never should have collided. Every corner of the modest Anacostia apartment whispered sacrifice. The thrift store couch where Tasha had played as a toddler. The dining table where homework was done between double shifts. The desk where Immani had typed her MBA thesis by lamplight while her daughter slept. She buried her face in her hands. For years, she had taught Tasha to stand tall, speak up, never let anyone diminish her worth, all while she herself bent under Victoria's cruelty. The hypocrisy seared her throat like acid. The front door opened. Tasha dropped her backpack, joy on her face faltering when she saw her mother's expression. "What happened?" she asked, rushing to Immani's side. "Nothing," Immani said automatically, the protective lie. "Mom," Tasha's tone hardened. "Stop it. I'm not a child anymore." The story spilled out. Victoria's theft, the stolen patents, the contract threat, the veiled menace against Tasha's future. Each word was a blade cutting deeper into Immani's shame. When she finished, silence filled the room. Tasha picked up her mother's Howard University diploma, holding it like a mirror. "You've taught me to never let anyone make me feel small," she said. Her eyes were fierce. "So why are you letting her do this to you?" "To us?" Immani whispered. "It's complicated." "No, it's not. Tasha says so much like her father S. before he walked away 17 years ago, flashed with fierce, inherited determination. You're stronger than this woman. You always have been." Immani closed her eyes, memory pulling her backward 15 years. Howard University, MBA program. Professor Lawson's advanced corporate strategy class. Sleep-deprived, single mother Immani raised her hand, heart pounding. "With respect, Professor, this acquisition strategy prioritizes short-term shareholder returns over sustainable growth." Professor Lawson's dismissive laugh filled the room. "Miss Taylor, perhaps focus on completing the assignment as written. Executive strategy may not be your natural strength." The implicit bias hung heavy. Several students shifted uncomfortably. "Actually," Immani pressed on, voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "The financials in Appendix C show a 24% devaluation within 18 months. The alternative strategy outlined on page 47 would have yielded 16% sustainable growth." Silence fell. Pages turned. Numbers re-examined. From the back of the room, a voice rang out. Miss Taylor is correct. A guest lecturer, Diane Foster. Rising star at Meyer Lynch, sharp eyes cutting through the silence. "Excellent analysis," Diane said. After class, she approached. "You have sharp instincts. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." Years later, Even Professor Lawson became her strongest reference, telling employers, "She'll either clean up your balance sheet or your boardroom. Either way, you want her on your side." And yet, doors still closed. Interviews still ended with not the right fit. But Immani had stood her ground then. The memory burned through her now, crystallizing into resolve. She opened her eyes, meeting Tasha's gaze head-on. "You're right," she said finally. "This ends now." Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Miss Taylor," a voice said when she answered. "Diane Foster, are you available to meet tomorrow? There's something we should discuss." They met at a small coffee shop 10 blocks from Montgomery Tower, neutral ground. No chance of being seen. Diane arrived dressed down jeans, a sweater, hair pulled back, minimal makeup, almost unrecognizable. "Thank you for coming," she said, sliding into the booth. No handshake, no corporate pleasantries. "Your message seemed urgent," Immani replied. Diane's eyes flicked around the cafe before she pulled a leather portfolio from her bag. "I've been tracking Victoria's activities for months. Why?" "When the CFO finds 7-figure administrative expenses with no documentation, it becomes my business." She opened the portfolio. Spreadsheets, transfer slips, photocopies of falsified board minutes, offshore accounts in hidden jurisdictions, donor money disguised as community outreach, but spent on designer clothing, jewelry, a beachfront property in Turks and Caicos. Immani's stomach churned as she sifted through the evidence. "Why show me this?" "Because sometimes the most powerful position," Diane said quietly, "is the one nobody notices. You see everything from where you stand, don't you?" Immani studied her carefully. "What do you want?" "Evidence I can't access. Conversations I'm excluded from. Board meetings that conveniently forget to include me." "You want me to spy for you?" "I want justice." Diane's voice hardened. "James is destroying what could be an ethical, profitable company. Victoria is stealing money meant for children's education. And now," she tapped the table, "they're stealing your intellectual property." Immani's head snapped up. "How did you?" "I review all new initiatives. The moment I saw the formulations, I recognized them." She leaned forward, voice low. "Show me." Immani hesitated, then unlocked her phone and opened her patent files. Diagrams, lab notes, prototype schematics. Diane studied them, her eyes widening. "This is brilliant. Not just the chemical innovations, but the systems approach. Efficiency, sustainability, scalable impact." Her gaze lifted, sharp with new fire. "They think we're invisible. That's about to become very expensive for them." "I've been fighting this battle alone for years," Immani said, her voice taut. "Why should I trust you now?" Diane was silent for a long moment, then 15 years ago. Howard University, Professor Lawson's strategy class. Immani's breath caught. "That was you?" "I never forgot the student who stood her ground, despite every attempt to silence her." Diane's lips curved in the faintest smile. "I've been watching your career ever since, wondering why someone with your mind never reached her potential. Now I understand who blocked your path." Immani studied her warily. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Partnership. You provide the evidence I need. Protect your daughter's position and make sure your patents remain yours." Diane held her gaze, unwavering. "And together, we take back the company from people who don't deserve to run it." That night, Immani began making calls. First to her lawyer, the one who'd helped file her patents, pro bono, because he believed in her work. Then 2 former classmates now occupying senior corporate positions. Finally, 2 executives who'd been quietly sidelined or driven out by Victoria's games. Patterns emerged. Same pressure tactics, the same whispered threats, the same forced exits. By dawn, alliances were forming. A strategy was taking shape. The following weekend, she and Tasha slipped into a Georgetown boutique owned by a woman who had once been a Montgomery executive until Victoria orchestrated her removal. The former exec studied Immani thoughtfully, then pulled a gown from a rack. Deep midnight blue. Subtle silver threading. Elegant but commanding. "You're really going through with this?" she asked as Immani stepped into the dressing room. "I am." Tasha adjusted the gown's shoulder, her eyes shining with both pride and nerves. "Then walk in like you already own the company, Mom." The Westford Hotel ballroom glittered with Washington, D.C.'s elite. Crystal chandeliers spilled golden light across white orchids, mirrored table settings, and silver candelabras. A string quartet played batch as the city's power brokers glided through the space, each move as deliberate as a chess match. Victoria Montgomery Prescott reigned near the entrance, resplendent in a scarlet designer gown, worth more than Immani's annual salary. She smiled and air-kissed her way through politicians, diplomats, and CEOs, soaking in the spectacle she had engineered. James Montgomery lingered nearby, checking his watch between strained pleasantries with potential investors. Board members huddled in corners, champagne flutes in hand, their laughter just a little too loud, business negotiations disguised as social chatter. Diane Foster arrived alone.
Hi!
She offered Victoria the barest nod before gliding into the crowd. Victoria's smile tightened, her eyes narrowing at the insult. But her attention quickly shifted to the next donor approaching. At 8:17 p.m., exactly 17 minutes after the official start, the ballroom doors opened once more. Immani Taylor entered, the midnight blue gown draped over her shoulders with quiet authority, silver threads shimmering under the chandeliers. Her hair, swept into an elegant updo, revealed the delicate diamond earrings her mother had saved for special occasions. Its effect was instantaneous. A ripple of silence spread outward. Crystal glasses hovered midair. The quartet faltered, bowstrings stretching a single note into eternity. Conversations froze as heads turned. Victoria, mid-greeting, went still. For 3 years she had looked through Immani, never at her. Now recognition dawned, sharp and cutting, chased immediately by outrage. Scarlet silk flared as Victoria swept forward across the marble floor, her heels striking like gunfire. The staff, she hissed, her voice carrying, uses the service entrance. Honey, Diane's voice sliced in smoothly as she appeared at Immani's side. Victoria, I'd like to introduce my special guest and potential business partner, Immani Taylor. Victoria's mouth opened, then snapped shut, then opened again. She's our cleaning lady. Not tonight, Immani replied, her eyes locked on Victoria's. Tonight I'm not here to clean, I'm here to collect. She moved past Victoria's frozen figure, Diane matching her stride. The room's conversations resumed, but eyes followed. Who is she? Housekeeping manager, isn't she? Why is Foster calling her a business partner? Whispers swirled through the air like smoke. Immani walked the room with a poise that startled even her. Years of silent observation, remembering names, noting alliances, watching which board member reached for which scotch now crystallized into power. What had once been invisible service had become tactical intelligence. Victoria trailed behind, frantically spinning damage control. Temporary consultant. Diversity initiative. Foster's pet project. Each explanation only deepened suspicion. Finally, James Montgomery noticed the shift in the room and excused himself from his investors. He approached with his well-rehearsed smile. Miss Foster. He nodded at Diane, then extended his hand to Immani. James Montgomery. I don't believe we've met. Oh, we've met, Immani said, shaking his hand with perfect composure. Several times, confusion flickered across his face. You look familiar? I've cleaned your office every night for 3 years, she said evenly. And before that, you rejected my job application, said I wasn't the right fit.
And the view?
The view is different from where I'm standing now. A faint twitch betrayed his recalibration.
See.
Well, welcome to our event. Hope you're enjoying yourself. Immensely, Immani replied. Though I'm curious about your new sustainability initiative, the one using my patented technology. The color drained from James's face. I'm afraid I don't. Your wife has been presenting it as her own innovation, Immani continued, her voice cool and steady. Perhaps we should discuss appropriate licensing agreements. James shot a desperate glance at Victoria, who stood across the room, her smile cracked porcelain. There must be some confusion, he began. No confusion, Diane cut in, her voice crisp as glass. Miss Taylor holds verified patents for the system. We have documentation. This isn't the appropriate venue, James started. I agree, Immani said. Courtroom would be more suitable. The words hung like a blade in the ballroom air. Harriet Williamson, the board's elder stateswoman, appeared at James's shoulder. James, Victoria seems distressed. Perhaps you should check on her. The dismissal was polite, but firm. James hesitated, then retreated. Harriet turned to Immani. Miss Taylor, is it? Diane speaks highly of your innovations. Thank you, Miss Williamson. I've admired your leadership on the Sustainability Committee. Harriet's eyebrows rose slightly. You follow our governance? I follow everything about Montgomery Industries, Immani said simply. I've had a vested interest for some time. The dinner bell chimed, scattering the moment. Guests moved toward their tables. Immani's name card was at Diane's side, close enough to the center to be seen, yet just out of the Montgomery's orbit. Through the first course, Victoria's hostess mask held, though the champagne glass trembled more with each refill. James whispered urgently with board members, his eyes darting toward Diane and Immani. By the main course, Victoria snapped. She rose abruptly, champagne flute in hand, tapping it sharply for attention. I'd like to thank everyone for supporting the Montgomery Future Leaders Fund, she said, voice pitched to high. Your generosity helps disadvantaged youth access opportunities they'd never otherwise have. Polite applause. And I must say, Victoria continued, eyes drilling into Immani, I'm especially moved to see such diverse attendance tonight. Everyone must be curious how our cleaning lady afforded a $5,000 plate. Should I check the silverware count? Gasps broke across the ballroom. Applause curdled into shocked murmurs. Immani didn't flinch. She held still, her face carved from calm. Diane rose. Since we're acknowledging special guests, she said clearly, her voice slicing through the room, I'd like to request everyone's attention for a brief presentation relevant to tonight's fundraiser. Victoria's painted smile stiffened. We haven't scheduled any presentations. Consider it breaking news, Diane replied, nodding at a hotel staffer. The ballroom's projector flickered to life. The first slide appeared, a financial statement from the Montgomery Future Leaders Fund. Victoria paled. What are you doing? She hissed. Financial transparency, Diane answered smoothly. Critical for any charitable organization. The next slides appeared, donations versus disbursements. The gap was glaring. Even the most casual observer could see the truth. Money went in, but very little came out. The ballroom buzzed, tension snapping like live wires. As you can see, Diane continued, her voice steady as a surgeon's hand. Of the $2.7 million raised last year, only $213,000 reached educational programs. Gasps rippled through the ballroom. Victoria lunged for the podium. This is private foundation business, public charity, Diane countered, her tone scalpel sharp, which means public records. New slides flashed onto the screen. Wire transfers to Cayman Islands accounts. The beneficiary names glared in bold font: Victoria's maiden name, her sister's married name, her mother's maiden name. This is slander. Victoria shrieked, clawing at the screen. Her elbows struck a champagne tower. Crystal flutes cascaded down, shattering across the floor. Champagne pooled across white linen like spreading blood. The room froze. James Montgomery leapt to his feet, voice straining toward authority. Ladies and gentlemen, please excuse this unfortunate disruption. My wife is understandably upset by these baseless accusations. Baseless? Diane arched an eyebrow. The SEC has already received our report, as have your major donors. The murmurs swelled. Several donors stood and slipped out, faces tight with disgust. This is clearly a misunderstanding, James insisted, sweat beading at his temple. Victoria's charitable work is entirely separate from Montgomery Industries. The company bears no liability for her foundation. An interesting position, Immani said, rising slowly from her seat. Every head turned. Especially considering Montgomery Industries just announced its new sustainability initiative built on technology stolen from me. James's smile faltered. Would you like to see the original patent applications? She continued, her words precise, deliberate. Filed 3 years ago? Under my name? That's absurd, James scoffed. You're a cleaning lady. I'm a Howard University MBA, Immani corrected, steel in her tone. With 3 patents pending? And I've already spoken with Apex Holdings and Westridge Development, your largest competitors. They're very interested in licensing my technology. The boardroom sharks smelled blood. Expressions shifted from dismissive to calculating. Immani pressed on. My second patent covers a sustainable maintenance system that reduces operational costs by 34% annually. For Montgomery Industries, that's $47 million in savings every year. She let the figure linger in the air, a golden lure. You thought I was beneath notice because I cleaned your messes. That's why you never saw me building something that could either save your company or help your competitors bury it. The ballroom transformed. It's no longer an audience, they were a jury, and Immani owned the floor. Victoria's face, mottled with rage, whipped toward her husband. Do something? James tugged at his tie, recalibrating furiously. Perhaps we should discuss this privately, Ms. Taylor. No, Immani cut him off. No more private deals. No more stolen credit. My terms are public. She raised one hand, fingers unfolding like commandments. 1. A 12.5% minority ownership stake in Montgomery Industries, reflecting the value of my technologies. 2. The creation of an ethical oversight committee with me as chair to monitor acquisitions in disadvantaged communities. 3. A legitimate scholarship foundation for overlooked MBA candidates, fully transparent. And for Victoria's immediate resignation from all boards and company positions. James barked out a brittle laugh. That's preposterous. The board would never. I would like to review Ms. Taylor's patents immediately, Harriet Williamson interrupted. The longest-serving board member's voice carried weight like iron. Other heads nodded. Robert Chen, senior strategist, added, "We should adjourn to the conference room. This is outrageous." Victoria shrieked, "You're all going to believe a cleaning lady over me?" The crowd parted instinctively as she stormed out. The click of her heels a retreat drumbeat. No one followed. Moments later in the conference room, Immani laid out her full portfolio. Diagrams, formulas, efficiency data, the work of 3 stolen years. These formulations reduce toxic runoff by 82% compared to industry standards, she explained calmly. And the application system cuts labor hours by nearly a third. Board member Ellen Tanaka leaned forward, scanning the documentation. "And you developed this while working here as housekeeping staff?" "Yes," Immani said. "Nights, weekends, lunch breaks." 3 years. Ellen's voice was reverent. "Remarkable. More than remarkable," Diane added. "Potentially transformative." James paced by the window, phone in hand, trying and failing to reach Victoria. For the first time in his career, he looked like a man without a script. James Montgomery's instincts warred visibly corporate reflex against personal loyalty. "Miss Taylor," he said at last, tone brittle, "while your innovations appear promising, your demands are excessive." "The board can't possibly the board," Harriet Williamson cut in, her voice a gavel. "We'll consider Ms. Taylor's proposals with the seriousness they deserve." She turned to Immani. "We'll need time to verify your patents and assess their value." "Of course," Immani replied evenly. "My attorney has prepared documentation packets for each of you." Robert Chen leaned forward, eyes sharp. "You came prepared." "I've had 3 years to prepare, Mr. Chen." Outside, the gala limped along in a haze of whispered speculation. Victoria had vanished. Donors traded rumors like currency. 2 hours later, after closed-door debate, the board filed back into the ballroom. Harriet returned to the podium, calm as ever. "The Montgomery Industries Board has begun a thorough review of concerns raised tonight. We take allegations of financial impropriety and intellectual property theft extremely seriously. Pending investigation, we have approved initial terms with Ms. Immani Taylor regarding her innovations." The subtle public acknowledgement struck like thunder. Conversations erupted. James kept his face neutral, but behind his stillness was the recognition of a corporate coup. As guests departed, Immani was no longer invisible. Business cards pressed into her hands, invitations stacked in her clutch. The woman once overlooked now commanded the room. 3 months later, the fallout came swift. The Montgomery Future Leaders Fund collapsed under SEC scrutiny. Victoria's accounts frozen, her lawyers scrambling. News outlets devoured the scandal. The Washington Post. From mop bucket to boardroom. How Immani Taylor exposed corporate exploitation. The Wall Street Journal. Montgomery Industries faces reckoning after fraud scandal. Forbes, the invisible innovator. How overlooked talent costs companies millions. Hashtag invisible innovators trended, so others shared similar stories. Victoria took a plea deal, probation, steep fines, community service teaching financial literacy in low-income schools. The irony stung. She fled to Palm Beach, a ghost of her former self. James retired early, slipping into obscurity in Arizona, his empire reduced to modest projects under heavy oversight. Montgomery Industries survived, but not unchanged. Diane Foster became interim CEO. Stock dipped, then stabilized. Immani's patents were licensed, securing her an 8.5% ownership stake, less than her demand, but worth millions. More importantly, she was named chair of the new Ethics and Community Impact Committee. Her first act, blocking a predatory acquisition, instead forging a partnership that uplifted a black-owned business. Skeptical board members found themselves nodding as the numbers backed her vision. Sustainable growth over strip mine profit. Her eco-cleaning technology launched with immediate contracts from major hotel chains. Gerald Porter's company became flagship partner, now with fair wages, benefits, and a pathway from janitorial staff to management. The Montgomery Taylor Scholarship Foundation awarded its first grant. It's transparent, audited, untouchable. The first day on a Tuesday morning, 8:15 sharp, Immani entered Montgomery headquarters through the front doors. "Good morning, Miss Taylor," the security guard said, handing her a permanent badge. No more disposable service passes. The elevator rose directly to the executive floor. No service level stops, no dim back corridors. The door slid open to polished marble and hushed respect. The receptionist smiled. "The boardroom is ready for you." Immani walked the corridor where her cleaning cart once rattled against baseboards. At the end, the corner office James Montgomery's old domain bore a new plaque. Immani Taylor, Chief Innovation Officer. Inside, Diane looked up from a stack of documents. "Ready for this?" "I've been ready for years," Immani said, setting her briefcase on the desk. Her first meeting as board director began. Ethical investment guidelines passed unanimously. Initiatives for former cleaning staff to rise into corporate training pipelines moved forward. The press conference loomed at 2 p.m., where the world would see her not as invisible labor but as leader, innovator, and force. For a moment, Immani allowed herself to stand at the office window. She looked down at the city she once crossed anonymously, her reflection framed in glass towers, from mop to mandate. From overlooked to undeniable, this was only the beginning. Tasha studied her mother. "You've never looked more like yourself." "I've never felt more like myself," Immani agreed. Then, smiling, though sometimes I still reach for a cleaning cart out of habit, they laughed, ordering takeout and talking about Tasha's upcoming graduation. When Immani's phone buzzed with an email from Diane about tomorrow's strategy meeting, Tasha shook her head. "Chief Innovation Officer less than 4 months in, and already a workaholic?" Immani smiled. "It's just making up for lost time." The next morning, she arrived early for an investor presentation. The overnight crew was just finishing. Maria, now housekeeping manager, looked up in surprise. "Miss Taylor, we didn't expect executives this early." "Old habits," Immani replied gently. "Please, it's still Immani." Maria gathered her supplies, then added shyly, "Congratulations, you deserve it, and the new equipment is amazing. You finish in half the time." "Louise is even taking business classes now with the stipend." "That's what I like to hear," Immani said, warmth filling her voice. Maria hesitated. "I never asked." "How did you know so much about cleaning systems?" "By doing the work everyone else thought was beneath them," Immani said. "There's wisdom in every job if you're paying attention." As Maria left, Immani stood in the gleaming boardroom. Once she'd been invisible, here now, it awaited her leadership. 1 year later, the Westford Hotel ballroom was filled again, but this time for the Taylor Innovation Foundation's first grant ceremony. Entrepreneurs from overlooked communities stood proudly as Immani addressed them from the podium. "True power isn't about where you stand," she told the room. "It's about refusing to be defined by it." 17 startups had already launched with foundation support. Tonight, 12 more would join them. Montgomery Industries, reborn under Diane's leadership and Immani's influence, was now a model of ethical business, literally. The Taylor model had been adopted by 3 other Fortune 500s. Her eco-cleaning division was their fastest-growing revenue stream. Her sustainability systems were saving millions while cutting pollution. The Scholarship Foundation was funding overlooked MBAs. After the ceremony, while mingling, she noticed a hotel worker in uniform discreetly watching the proceedings. "Enjoying the event?" Immani asked. The young woman startled. "Yes, ma'am. It's inspiring." I'm Immani Taylor, she said, extending a hand. Gabriela Rodriguez. I know who you are. Everyone does? Interested in business, Gabriela? I'm studying sustainable architecture at community college, working here nights to pay tuition. Immani reached into her clutch, handing over her business card and an invitation. Our next entrepreneur workshop is Tuesday. Your ideas matter. Your position is temporary. Your potential is permanent. Gabriela blinked at the card. I couldn't possibly. I said those exact words once, Immani interrupted softly. I was wrong. So are you. Later that night, back at Montgomery Tower, the cleaning crew greeted her by name. The security guard tipped his hat. No one was invisible anymore. In the executive suite, she straightened a crooked picture frame without thinking, smiling at the habit. Then she reviewed tomorrow's presentation, her daughter's text lighting her phone. Mom, remember to sleep? CEOs need rest too. At the window, she paused. 3 years ago, she had polished this glass, erasing the fingerprints of the powerful. Now, the city lights reflected back her own image, the woman she had always been, finally seen. Fate Tales outro. Did this story move you? The journey from invisible to unstoppable is one we can all relate to. At Fate Tales, we share powerful real-life inspired narratives that reveal the resilience of the human spirit. Stories like Immani's remind us that dignity cannot be stolen, only surrendered. And sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one destined to shake its foundations. If this story spoke to you, like, subscribe, and share so others can discover it too. At Fate Tales, every voice matters, every struggle has meaning, and every story carries the power to change a life. One story can wake a crowd. One moment of clarity can break years of silence. This is just the beginning.